Sitting atop the list of game developers I can never seem to say no to the games of is Atlus. I mean, of course, right? I'm still rocking the Persona 3 Remake protagonist profile picture pretty much everywhere. These days, while Persona is what they're probably best known for, that wasn't always the case, and depending on who you ask, still isn't. Shin Megami Tensei is a series that Persona is most often compared to, which isn't surprising, given that Persona began as an offshoot of SMT originally, but since then has become largely more popular and its own thing. It's kind of a Kingsfield Dark Souls situation. Persona has garnered so much popularity that relatively recently the Persona series has gotten its own offshoots like Striker's Q and the dancing games, but the two never seem to intersect again. SMT is wholly different in terms of both atmosphere and general intent from Persona. It's no clearer than the game I'm talking about today, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Vengeance does do that thing that these Atlus games seem to have going on, which even some of those behind the games themselves agree may be a reason why a not insignificant portion of their player base avoid buying these games at a initial release. Devil Survivor, Overclocked, Devil Survivor 2, Record Breaker, Strange Journey, Redux, Persona 3, Fez and Portable, Persona 4, Golden, Persona 4 Arena, Ultimax, Persona 5, Royal, Catherine, Full Body, Ad Infinitum. Now, if only we could get some updated iterations of Digital Devil Saga. The title was originally released on the Switch in 2021, and when I finally made the choice to nab it a month later, the Steelbook launch edition was, for reasons still unclear to me, cheaper than the standard plastic. Then came the definitive version of SMT5 on all consoles 3 years later in the form of Vengeance, and that statement no longer appears to be true. Came with a bevy of new demons, new enemies, new super bosses, and a new story in addition to the one already present in its basic version. But do these additions and updates and upgrades justify me purchasing it a second time? Is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance worth it? Given that turn-based RPGs, JRPGs especially, hold a special place in my heart, SMT as a series already has a bit of a foothold in terms of my feelings about them even without my general enjoyments of their titles. Vengeance here is no exception. The combat is turn-based. One team acts using a single member of the party at a time until the entire team is gone, then the other team goes, and that pattern continues ever onward until everyone on one side falls. The turn order for your side is determined by how your party is ordered. First person in line goes first, and it's nice that the protagonist can go in any of the 4 slots available for your party. One of the cool aspects of the combat here, though, is the mainstay mechanic of SMT and its various offshoots, the press turn system. Allies and enemies have specific elements, kinds of attacks, and status ailments that they are susceptible to, strong against, or neutral towards. These come in a range of variable affinities: weak, neutral, resist, null, reflect, and drain. If you can exploit an enemy's weakness, or an attack you make ends up critting, you get an extra action, as it's called, for your side of the fight. If your attack, however, gets nulled, reflected, drained, or just misses, you instead lose an action on top of that wasted attack. Although, thankfully, if an attack is resisted, it's just weaker. You don't lose anything except for maybe your pride. On higher difficulties, you may as well write out your will now if there is even a single misplay. This system goes both ways. There are some specific mechanics to this title in the series, though, the most prominent of which is Omogotoki, various different special skills that are dependent on the demons in your party and your stock that can be used when your Magatsuhi gauge is full and don't take an action to use. The Magatsuhi gauge itself is something that is likewise unique to SMT5, wherein Magatsuhi is a special resource that fills up as the fight goes on or when little red Magatsuhi pips get picked up on the field. All of these vastly encourage planning around enemy weaknesses and strengths, and further encourages gathering demons of all varieties, which is another of the main traits that SMT has going on, demons and the compendium. It's a shame that plenty of people still compare these games to Pokemon or Digimon when, yeah, I mean, there is the creature collection aspect, but that's pretty much all there really is to compare. And unlike Pokemon and Digimon, I actually want to complete the collection here. And in fact I did, it only took 6 playthroughs. Demons tend to have unique skills specific to them as well as inherent abilities that are likewise unique, called innate skills, and even these traits can change situationally. There's a demon that can flip the stat buffs and debuffs of everyone else when she gets summoned from the stock. Demons that have their own attacks gain power based on how many hits that allies made earlier in the turn. Demons that increase the likelihood of passive skills like Murderous Glee activating while in the party. Mixing and matching is the name of the game here, and I love it deeply. Then there's the Essence system, which allows you to add both passive and active skills to demons by using an essence gained from a demon. Most of the time, you'll likely use it for flat upgrades to abilities like replacing a Zeo with a Zeodyne, or accounting for a demon's weakness by adding a passive skill like Resist Elect, but once you've unlocked the ability to do so, you can also change the affinity of the protagonist using an essence. While this system is not nearly as broken as Strange Journey's password system, it's still a great time building up your demons in specific ways. Even outside of essences, there's another way to customize the demons in your compendium. Fusion, which takes demons you have on hand or with some money spent on your parts straight from your compendium's catalog and fuses them together to create a new demon whose skills are largely comprised of the skills from the material demons used. It's how you get the majority of the demons in the compendium, and it's easy to use to fill out that compendium once you learn some of its tricks, like fusion accidents being more likely to occur at certain times, or that fusing one of the elemental demons with a non-elemental demon results in a demon of the same class as the latter, but a higher rank. I love seeing these interpretations of various mythos and aspects of real-world historical figures, like the angels all having this mechanical automaton construct look. It's cool shit. Beelzebub being a giant bug is a given, but the skull and crossbones on his wings was an entirely unnecessary and yet entirely fantastic addition to his design. Cleopatra, except part of her arm, is just snakes. I've even been reading some Laird Baron lately, and I can't say I ever saw Belphegor that way. There's somewhere between 250 to 300 demons in all, some of which are hidden behind a specific ending or certain quests or fights within specific routes that aren't part of the ending itself, if that distinction makes any sense. But I love all of these designs, and the demon haunts, which allow admittedly limited interactions with them, is a nice touch. The music is good as well, though the areas aren't always that interesting, and there's a distinct lack of straightforward dungeons that you might otherwise expect from an SMT title. There's the dungeon at the end of the third area for the Canon of Creation. It's equivalent in the third area of Canon of Vengeance, and the one at the end of the game that both stories share, but that's it. No, I'm not counting the school. Still, these dungeons are unique in appearance and mechanics, and the lack of dungeons is done in service of the open world areas of the game, which focuses more on exploration. In fact, this game, unlike the others in the series, has that open world as a key aspect of its gameplay. Chiyoda has a thick fog permeating everything at ground level, Shinjuku has large pillars effectively and occasionally literally walling off progress along a specific path, and Taito has a few things going on depending on where you are at any given moment. These elements aren't super effective most of the time, and I do miss the dungeons of the other titles, but the music carries it, and there are some truly great vistas to see in this game that only seem to get more interesting as the game goes on.
Looking to say, looking here. This'll do.
What is this? A passing soul? This is a path linked to the future. The choices you make will affect the very course of the world. Stay your hand now. The soul of that girl cannot be permitted to exist.
By her very nature, she will lead the world into chaos and ruin. She must remain sealed here for all eternity.
To take the girl from this place will lead not to the future destined for this world, but to a world yet unknown.
Knowing only this, will you still take her hand?
Vengeance begins kind of simply. Take her hand, or don't. If you don't, you're going the Canon of Creation route. This is the original story of Shin Megami Tensei 5 as it was released on the Nintendo Switch. with some mechanical additions that came with vengeance, new demons, and a new super boss. There are 3 endings, those being Chaos, Order, and Neutral, that can be chosen at a certain point near the end of the story. There's also a secret 4th ending that requires you to do some things before that point, choosing the neutral path at the path splits in the final areas, then changing your mind once you're presented with an alternative from a specific character. Ironically, if you go with the basic neutral ending, you actually have the easiest final fights possible, completely ignoring the final boss, in fact. But if you go with the hidden neutral ending, you get the hardest version of that final boss, who's been reworked slightly between the original release and Vengeance to be tougher than he used to be. The characters here aren't that well rounded, and if you know anything about SMT, you can probably guess really early on who's meant to represent what path. There isn't an overarching villain to speak of. Each segment of the game seems to focus on a singular threat that, once beaten, doesn't have too much bearing on the story going forward. The most you get relating to a constant through line is some ethereal voice that speaks to characters during a select few cutscenes, but you never put a face to that voice until the very end of the game. Some lore details get dropped on your lap in ways that don't feel natural, and the more interesting characters and even characterization are found mostly in side quests, leaving the critical path feeling somewhat barren and disappointing. If you do take your hand, you're going the canon of Vengeance route. This is an updated story that, well, I say updated, but in reality it tells an entirely different story using mostly the same setting and mostly the same characters. If I'm being blunt, Canon of Vengeance is just better. For a start, characters feel like more than just vehicles for and representations of specific paths. They have actual motivations and goals that flesh out their personalities. These traits themselves were present in COC, but they weren't as explored as they are here, and there's conflict between characters beyond just here's a demon, let's kill it, or the inevitable ending path split. You also have an actual singular threat to deal with for the majority of the game in the form of the Kadishtu. This isn't one of those choices matter kinds of situations wherein at the end of the game you can see the results of your various choices throughout in a slideshow presentation with a voiceover by Ron Perlman, but in COV, the choices you make relating towards specific dialogue interactions and side quests influence your alignments, and that alignment in turn determines which of the 2 endings you get once you reach a certain point at the end of the story, further differing itself from COC. This alignment system itself was present in Canon of Creation, but it didn't affect your actual ending beyond a few side quests and a potential fine for unlocking a side quest. You chose the ending in COC at the end, but here the ending is chosen based on your alignments, and you can check what your alignment is if you go to the Tokyo overworld and pay attention to how your pip is spinning. Some moments felt like they came out of left field, because some of the story elements here suggest the character or 2 would be following a different character arc, only to commit a much more brutal heel turn than they did in COC. I think that's fairly emblematic of how COV is. The characters are still the characters, but the story progresses in such a way that their best traits and their worst traits are more on display than they were in the other story. After choosing to either take or not take her hand, as the case may be, the game officially begins, opening with deciding on the name of the protagonist. From here, the 2 stories are largely the same, barring a character's subtle appearance in the initial tunnel. Heading home from Joe and High results in stumbling across a crime scene, which Yuzuru Atsuta, one of the 3 students we walked home with, the other 2 being Tao Isenakami and Miyazu Atsuta, proceeds to investigate. After poking our heads into the mess by listening to the crowd, we turn back only to see Tao missing now too. Miyazu makes the request to check up on her brother, which we oblige. There are 2 tunnels, and Yuzuru went for the other one in his own investigating. Here we find some nameless guy and Ichiro Dazai, another key figure in the narrative of SMT5, and things finally get interesting.
All right. So word on the street is a bunch of monsters have been seen hanging around this tunnel. Yow! Sheesh! Ceiling's pretty low. Pretty dark in here, too. Looks dangerous. All right. Enough screwing around. Let's go even deeper, yeah? I think we might be onto something big.
Hey, what are you doing here?
can this be? A human walks among us. This is no place for one such as you. I shall grant you sanctuary. Fortunate an angel of Bethel found you. Were it an agent of chaos in my stead, you may not be alive. Remain calm and keep still. You will be safe momentarily.
Waking up, we're greeted with a desert hellscape, which I'm only just now realizing is kind of a pun, for which I am not sorry, and demons. Also a man from the sky pulling a Terminator, and a voice. Weird day. This place is Tokyo, but ravaged, almost apocalyptic. It's unclear exactly how this Tokyo and the one we're most familiar with are related, but we can see Tokyo Tower clear enough at the distance, so at least there's a landmark to strive towards in our search for the potentially kidnapped Ichiro. After meeting the shopkeep Gustav, helping him find one of his wandering maman, resulting in a game of hide and seek with 200 players that spans the entire game with rewards gifted with every interval of 5 found, the introduction to Sophia, the person who's responsible for demon fusions, the demon compendium, and miracles which upgrade your character beyond simple statistics that cost glory to obtain, and clearing an abscess, we finally found a point where the story diverges. In COC, we simply find Yuzuru and begin talking about what this place could possibly be, given his recognition of the train we are standing beside. In COV, we do that, but get interrupted by a strange demon and another person named Yoko Hiramine. The demon is Glaciala Bolas, who's gotten one hell of a redesign since Demi Kids and isn't much of a threat with or without our 2 guest party members. Yoko can seem to cast magic even without a demon summoning program, which is a surprise. So far, the only person who can really do that is the protagonist himself, and he had to fuse with Aogami first. These two don't really change the issue, though. This place is still largely unknown to us, and Ichiro is still, go figure, missing. All along the way to our destination, we interact with this little pixie-like demon called Amanazako. She'll be a fairly frequent companion throughout the game, but barring a couple of quests centered around her later on, which I personally find might have some interesting lore implications, she isn't that involved with the main story for either canon, despite how often she pops up. There isn't too much of a shift between canons going along here either. Leading up to Tokyo Tower, a couple of side quests that are present in both canons, but not much else. Then we come across the so-called Demon of the Tower Hydra, and just before that, we actually get some more interesting stuff.
Heed my words, brethren. As decreed by the Seraphim, I, Abdiel, hereby take command of Bethel's holy army. Our foes are the demons of chaos, who swore allegiance to that contemptible snake! Yet fear not, we are all blessed with the divine protection of God Himself! Warriors from far and wide, hear me now! Strike them down in the name of order! The unholy will find their deliverance by our blades!
The god you cravenly revere is dead. Slain by my own hand, that humanity might finally live unbound from their chains.
Vile serpent, your lies mean nothing!
I speak only the truth. I have ascended the Pillar Imperial, the throne of God. As an angel, you know what this means. Such uncouth behavior from my former brethren. Order itself has crumbled. Chaos shall envelop the world. And from that chaos, there shall be a true rebirth. A wholly new future. All that remains yours is for me to sow the seeds that shall sprout into this grand reality.
It must have been. That was Lucifer, the Lord of Chaos. Shortly after our encounter, my operations ceased. It was only after I sensed your presence that I reactivated. I've since recovered a portion of my memory data. Yes, I was an agent of Bethel, and I was sent here on an important mission. They have a base not far from here, at the Tokyo Diet Building. There, the angels of Bethel work tirelessly to protect the people. Young man, it is my guess that the angel who took your friend will also be there. Let us make our way to the Tokyo Diet Building, for your own safety.
Hey! Hey! This is no time to space out! Something's coming!
The Hydra isn't a very difficult first boss. You can use a spyglass, an always useful item, especially if you're Matama farming, to see the Drake has a weakness to ice skills like Bufu, but completely nullifies fire skills and poison. While he is resistant to other status ailments like Seal, it's important to note that resistance isn't immunity. Fire Breath is only kind of annoying. The real annoyance is Toxic Breath, since it's a dark skill that can also inflict poison, which in turn activates his innate skill Pernicious Venom. It's a nice introduction to how some of these bosses and fights in general can go if you're unprepared. Afterwards, you get the Return Pillar, key item that lets you instantly teleport to the last ley line found you visited. An actual divergence occurs soon enough. In COC, we just talk with an angel. In COV, though, that angel is dust, and instead we're met with the first of the Kidishtu, Nama. Nama is considered the most seductive of the Kidishtu, and she's resistant to every basic element type and various status ailments. She also completely nulls Dark and the Charm ailment, the latter of which is in no way surprising. Her innate skill, Kidishtu Deception, isn't that useful since she's alone here, but Capitulate to Pleasure is a skill to watch out for, removing snap buffs and potentially inflicting charm. Unfortunately for her, she has two problems. First, she's weak to physical, which means that the most basic attack, which costs actually nothing to do, is a free turn for even the most useless of demons. Second, my recordings for the Canon of Vengeance route weren't during my first playthrough, with all that might entail. If you're worried about spoilers, this, if you're curious, is where you get off the ride. I'm covering the Canon of Creation first, then Canon of Vengeance, so I'm sure this will turn out to be one of my longer videos. Either way, here's where you get back on. Between Tokyo Tower and the Diet Building, nothing happens apart from an angelic bouncer requiring us to get rid of some demons nearby to prove we're allowed to join the club. Of course, they can't do it themselves. There's only two of them, and they're too busy looking busy. Nixing those incredibly difficult demons earns us entry. Or it's supposed to. When we get back, those angels are nowhere to be found, and entering the Diet Building only raises further questions, which thankfully gets answered pretty soon. Mother Goddess Nua here will be a more important figure later on, but for now she's a boss who just took out an assload of angels. Behind the scenes, I've been farming some Matama and clearing some side quests, but that doesn't make her as much of a pushover as Nama just was. My recordings for COC were my first playthrough, after all. She knows electric and dark, reflects force attacks, plus resistances to certain status ailments. Her only weakness is fire. Sacrifice of Clay and Zanma mean anyone on your side with a weakness to force may as well kiss their ass goodbye now. Then Matsuo is there to exploit electric weaknesses too. And the stat debuffs brought on by Sacrifice of Clay mean anyone who can survive her unique skill is still weaker as a result. You can't actually kill her here. Instead, the end of the fight leads into a cutscene that introduces someone named Shohei Yakuma. It seems the two are determined to kill angel and demon alike. From there, we finally find Ichiro and head back to the Tokyo we know via a transportation device inside the Diet Building. We also get introduced to the organization Bethel and the Archangel Abdiel, commander of its forces threatening our existence. Discover that Tao is considered a saint, and then...
Now, where do I start? I guess I should start with me. To put it plainly, I've had spiritual powers ever since I was little. Everyone at Bethel calls me the Saint. Bethel, Japan lost a lot of its strength in a battle many years ago. So these days, even students like me are helping out.
It's the same for me too, but never mind that. Is Tokyo still okay? Not long ago, we were in what looked like ruins, and they were crawling with demons. It was almost as if the city had been destroyed.
If I told you the Tokyo you'd been living in this whole time was a lie, would you believe me?
Huh?
18 years ago, something happened in the Chiyoda ward of Tokyo that suddenly erased the city from the rest of Japan. Its population of over 10 million people was wiped out in a matter of minutes, lost to the netherworld.
What are you talking about, Isonokami? We've been living in Tokyo as far as I can tell. You want to try explaining that?
The Tokyo you're referring to is an act of God. Through his miracle, Tokyo and its people were perfectly recreated. No one suspected a thing.
You mean everything up until now? It's all been fake?
As I said, the real Tokyo was destroyed 18 years ago. You saw it when you slipped into the netherworld.
That's impossible.
The real Tokyo has been completely overrun by demons. As if one Tokyo wasn't enough, the demons now covet the other, and all for our souls.
Though we are few, that is what the Bethel Japanese branch fights to protect. I hope the Saint has cleared things up for you. Apologies for dragging you into this.
Hey, haven't I seen you somewhere before?
My name is Koshimizu. I'm in charge here, in addition to being Japan's Prime Minister.
This is obviously a bit of a bare-bones explanation given by Tao and the director Koshimizu. They say that this is the first they've heard a proto-fiend, a manufactured demon like Aogami, fusing with a human before. And while they don't explain why that's enough of a significant occurrence that Abdiel was 100% willing to ice a high schooler over it, and how that fusion relates to the condemnation she mentioned, rest assured it is important later. Another question that pops up is the Tokyo we know of not being the original Tokyo that got wrecked by demons the reason why almost everyone we meet is literally faceless? Is that an actual design choice and not just the stereotypical JRPG protagonists always had the most thought put into their design, so let's ignore everything in the background situations? There's another few things going on from here. There's bullying at Joen High of a student named Sahori Itsukishima. A reference to Persona 5 shows itself when talking to one of the faceless students in the hallways. Later on the roof of the Joen High dorms, we talk with Tao about Sahori's bullying and what she can possibly do about it, and the director calls Aogami brother, plus briefly touches on the blasphemous might of the Nahobino, and the dialogue surrounding that makes it seem like he's going to be a villain at some point, but he won't be. Unfortunately, our trek to school the following day gets sidetracked when Jozoji Temple gets assailed by demons. Primarily the demon Lamu. I won't be covering what he can do until later, but for now, I'll share that the next region sees him as the primary threat. At the moment, Jozoji Temple is safe, but Joen High isn't. Lamu is there following his fleeing from our fight, as our other demons intent on hurting the students. Our arrival adds another piece to the puzzle of why things are escalating between Bethel and the demons in the Netherworld, which we will later learn is called Dot. So Lamu's partnered soul is Sahori, and while the demon doesn't exactly spell it out, we can infer, based on what he says, that having his partnered soul on hand, or tentacle in his case, makes a demon significantly stronger. He's using his connection to Sahori to abuse her emotional state, luring her into furthering his plan by suggesting that he can give her the revenge she wants against her bullies in return for her compliance. Chasing after and escaping Lamu leads us to the second area of Dot Shinagawa. As locations go, Shinagawa doesn't have much going on. It's mostly red and sandy, though there are some locations later that are a bit livelier. Here, it just feels like an extension of where we were in the Dot previously. No highlight I could give for this area could quite match the absurdity of the statement. I had to fight a French werewolf to save the life of a high school student who was kidnapped by demons into a devastated Tokyo. To see at the start of adventures into Shinagawa, we have to save students that have unfortunately been dragged here, and as we do so, Fian, a blonde swordsman with a penchant for licking his thumb to gain knowledge, lets us know that students who'd wound up here have safely found their way to a fairy village. The majority of them, anyway, as Sahori is still missing. But finding her won't be too difficult, since Ichiro, who'd been finding other students and keeping an eye out, runs back to the village to inform us that Sahori and Lamu had been found. This in turn leads us here. Lamu here has two phases. The first portion of phase 1 is effectively a wall you have to break through to get to him, his tentacles. They have the same force and light weaknesses he does, but don't make any attacks at themselves. Unfortunately, the tentacles have an inherited skill that makes it so we can't attack or really target Lamu's body itself with skills or items while they're around, meaning a spyglass won't show us what his skills are just yet. Thankfully, after clearing his tentacles, we get a more clear view on Lamu himself. Again, the same affinities, but his abilities are known now. Divine Decree, his innate skill, makes his Bufula and Mudo more likely to crit in this instance. Babylon Curse is an almighty skill wholly unique to him in this fight. Not even the version of him you can get as an ally through fusion has it. While its damage is relatively weak, it also inflicts Mud, a likewise unique status effect that removes a turn icon before the action of whoever is afflicted with it, and respawns his tentacles at full health, giving him the wall again. Then comes phase 2. Here his affinities have changed and he instead resists force and ice and has replaced his weakness to light with a weakness to fire. Divine Decree is still around, making all of his skills save for Mazayanga more likely to crit, and Babylon Cry has been replaced by Silt of Ruin, a stronger almighty attack that doesn't inflict mud, but rather lowers accuracy and evasion. His skills Tentarafu and Purple Smoke synergize fairly well. The first has a chance to inflict confusion to everyone on your side, and the second is a trio of physical attacks that increase their damage if the target is confused. The tentacles are no longer an issue at least, so just focus on burning him away and you should be fine.
Sorry. You're okay. Thank goodness.
Tao.
It's all right. You don't have to say anything. Let's just head back, okay?
There's something I need to say to both of you. Listen closely. You're mine!
The girl. Lamu's already got a hold of her.
Fools! Completed utter fools! You two have caused me a lot of trouble, but now I'll show you just how magnificent I am! Tremble at my awesome might as I send you to your doom! You two will make an excellent sacrifice!
This can't be happening again. Am I truly incapable of saving anyone?
Do not despair. You have your own role to play. This is the time to awaken that role.
Awaken?
Now, release the other within you.
Yes, that's right. I do have a role.
What's happening to her?
Even if it costs me everything, I won't let them perish. I offer you my life. Now, accept it!
Insolent! How dare she possess such power? I won't allow it!
Thank you. Now I can...
It was me. I was the one who would recreate the world.
This is about the points in some stories where the narrative would take a very distinct, darker turn, but that's not really what happens here. But there are some key details we learn. It used to be, way back when, that all demons were effectively gods known as Nahobino, but when the creator took the throne, he stripped away their godhood by removing their knowledge of good and evil. Then, when the fruit from the Garden of Paradise, where that knowledge was hidden away, was eaten, the humans who ate of that fruit inherited knowledge, a feature bound to their very souls and passed down generationally. Barring some circumstances, no single human can properly fuse with any random demon into a Nahobino, as the knowledge a person has is the knowledge of a specific demon, and more importantly, a demon who has found their knowledge cannot use it to become a Nahobino. This rule is known as the condemnation, and is why Abdiel was so keen on learning why and how Aogami and the protagonist had managed to fuse together. Supposedly, the condemnation is something that's more than just a simple rule meant to be followed, more than just something that isn't allowed to happen, but something that cannot physically happen. It's supposed to be literally impossible. The fact that we became a Nahobino would suggest that the creator has died, lifting the condemnation. This was what Lamu was attempting to do. He was trying to become a Nahobino by obtaining his true form by fusing with Sahori, his knowledge. From there, he intended to recreate the world using the powers of a Nahobino, a god. Does this mean that Aogami, who is a proto-fiend, a manufactured demon, also has a human with his knowledge, or is a manufactured demon able to fuse with anyone as a result of them being manufactured? The answer in this specific instance is that Aogami has a specific human, a specific knowledge found in the protagonist, and the latter question about fusing with anyone will have some answers in COV. After all that, in a meeting on the dorm roof, Director Koshimizu has an official mission for us. Bethel is launching an assault on the Demon King, the head of the demon's forces, in retaliation for the recent assault on Tokyo and its inhabitants. Despite orders saying that Bethel's Japan branch stay out of the conflict, Koshimizu wants us to go regardless. The battle is taking place in Tokyo after all, and Tokyo is our home. Yuzuru will be staying behind this time. Chiyoda is a bit of a maze, but most of that comes from the ground level being shrouded in fog. So long as you stick to the higher areas, you should be fine. And in fact, if you know what you're doing, you can go through Chiyoda pretty quickly. As for what happens here, not too much. Abdiel spots us on our way through, Midro shows more clear signs of which path he'll be associated with, and there's a fire giant blocking the way with a wall of flame that a handy talisman allows us to walk through and then embarrass that fire giant cert. No, the really interesting stuff happens when we reach Dekarabia, a demon that's willing to be our navigator and lets us know something about an upcoming enemy, Ishtar. Ishtar is a boss that guards the dungeon found in Chiyoda, the Demon King's castle, and Dekarabia lets us know that Ishtar is actually fueling her own power using 7 accessories linked to 7 Magatsuhi devices across Chiyoda. The problem is I want the achievement for beating her without disabling those devices. I got it. I've always loved when bosses in turn-based games like these play around with the mechanics of the game in unique ways. Seymour turning everyone into zombies and using healing spells on them probably instilled that in me when I was a kid. Any boss with a unique strategy has been a standout since then. Ishtar is a prime example of this, and thus is one of my favorite bosses in the game. She took me a few tries to really deal with, not as long as any of the super bosses, but the amount of attempts for non-optional bosses is only beaten by the final boss of the Hidden Path. A boss tends to have 2 press turn icons, 2 actions, 3 if they're feeling mean. Ishtar has more, and you can lower that amount by disabling her Magatsuhi devices. Let's start with her innate skill, Capricious Goddess, which greatly increases her damage if she uses 8 actions while in her turn. This means if she follows the standard rules of hit every weakness every time, she's only going to get stronger afterwards, and it's not as if you suddenly stop having the weakness she exploited the past 8 times she punched you in the dick. Marukunda lowers everyone's defense by a single rank for 3 turns, which is annoying but not catastrophic just yet. Hama-on and Ma-Hama-on are light attacks that have a single target and target everyone respectively. Diorama is a moderate heal, which is always good for a boss to have no notes. Zeodyne and Mazianga are electric attacks, and Sexy Dance can charm everyone, but the real piece of work in her arsenal is Dreadful Gleam. It's an electric attack that deals heavy damage to everyone on your team, ignores affinities, so a demon that would normally not even sweat at the proposition of being struck by lightning is suddenly seeing their life flash before their eyes at the mention of a static shock, and has a chance to seal, a status ailment that negates the use of all skills. Her affinities see her null electric and light attacks while flinching at force and dark. My first attempt does not go well, but I come up with a plan, using essences and the compendium. There's me with Zombarian and Medirahan, a powerful single-target force attack and a healing skill that brings everyone on my side back to full life. Kanabi Vale also sees occasional usage to lower incoming damage. Kuchulain has a skill called Gay Bulg, which has the important traits of being a force skill and always critting an extra action with every use, but honestly, probably could have replaced him with someone else here. Onyankapan also has heal skills and a force attack of his own, but his most important ability here is King of Tails, a unique skill to him that makes the enemy more likely to target an ally while raising that ally's attack to the max. He also has Marakukaja for good measure. He'll be using King of Tails primarily on the fourth party member Ananta, who boasts immunity to both light and electric attacks, thus forcing Ishtar to lose turns regularly since she only has one skill with a pierce effect that she doesn't use that often. Ananta unfortunately doesn't have too much offensively, which in turn means the stat buff from King of Tails isn't super useful, but since Ishtar is only resistant and not immune to seal, it uses Dark Sword in the surprising instance the ailment procs it won't. After her is the first proper dungeon. It has a gimmick based on being blown around via wall and floor traps that act on a timer. It's pretty simple, as gimmicks go, but I'm fine with that because I love the vibes here, especially the room at the end where we face off against Ariok, the Demon King. Chernobog is around too. He's very shroomy, he's very cool, though I'm sure some might disagree. And murking Ariok has left Bethel in a bit of a bind, as the meeting discussing what the plans for Bethel are now showcases.
Hear me. Bethel's mission is to sustain this world, God's world. Any objections?
Damn right there are. I say you cut the act and admit your god is dead and gone.
He speaks true. Besides, Lord Shiva will soon bring this world to its proper end.
On whose authority? If any being is to decide this world's fate, it will be me.
Not while the condemnation stands, it won't. It is undeniable proof that the Most High still sits upon the throne.
Does he? Then how do you explain the Nahobino standing here before us? Are we to take it this god of yours deems him a worthy successor to the throne? Forgive me, but is he not the proto-fiend of Bethel? Has your god not chosen him?
Very well. If his existence serves as blasphemy, I cannot remain in ignorance. Witness, as I smite this aberration and blot out his sin from the earth!
Abdiel is only weak to darkness, which tracks on account of her being an angel, and I'm kinda digging the smug bow she's got going on for this fight, really holier than thou. If she hits a weakness, she deals extra damage on account of her innate skill Purging Blade. She's got a full suite of physical skills, some fire, and a unique skill called Light's Descent, a powerful light attack that hits everyone. Unfortunately, she isn't all that powerful herself. We're nearing endgame now, so let's have a couple of reveals, right? First, Ichiro is now fully committing to representing the Order path, checking on Abdiel after the fight and being spoken to by the disembodied voice from the start of the game. Second, the director isn't actually a human. It is instead another proto-fiend, Tsukiyomi, and his knowledge is Yuzuru. They are the Chaos Path, hoping to see the world run by myriad gods with demons and humans existing side by side. Third, Tokyo is fully beginning to disappear now, the miracle that recreated Tokyo when it was destroyed nearly 2 decades prior. The Shekinah glory is beginning to fade, further cementing the fact that God is dead, leaving his throne empty for any Nahobino to assume. Fourth, Tao is back. Getting to the throne requires 3 keys, which are guarded by some of the regional leaders of Bethel that we saw during that meeting earlier. There's Vasaki, Zeus, and Odin. Khonsu was present for the meeting, though not necessary for progression in the main story, and Shiva is mentioned as being preoccupied and thus not present. You can, and in my opinion should, do the side quests involving them. We'll be doing them regardless, because for my first playthrough I opted to go for the secret ending. So, dealing with the side quests, the Falcon's Head, the Egyptian's Fate, the Winged Sun, the Secession of Ra, God is Stolen, the Root of the Problem, an Unusual Forecast, Fiend's Resolve, the Destined Leader, and the Universe in Peril. Basically all of the Khonsu quests, clearing the side quest near the fairy village, Fiend's quest, helping Amanazaku be free of her creators, and preventing the destruction of the universe by beating the super boss Shiva. Guess which one of those is the hardest? Before I get into the Shiva fight, I did want to mention that, as you may have surmised when I brought it up seconds ago, Amanazaku is a proto-fiend like Aogami and Tsukuyomi. After making sure she doesn't get forced to become something she doesn't want to, she mentions that the reason she's so adamant to be around us is because Aogami is a proto-fiend like her. Her description in the compendium, and when you analyze her earlier at the crater in Shinagawa in the earlier side quest The Power Beyond Control, it mentions that Amanazaku was created from Susanoo, the original demon from which Aogami was derived. It made me curious as to whether or not the protagonist could conceivably act as her knowledge as a result. After all, there are mentions during other side quests that the protagonist could act as the knowledge of a portion of gods, such as when it's implied by Zeus and Demeter during their related side quest line. Baal, along that same line, mentions that he could force us to become his knowledge as a result of the knowledge we already have. The COC very occasionally toys with the idea of an Ahobino existing, with either one of the beings fused not being the proper partner, but doesn't really commit to it. It's a shame. In the meantime, Taito is a pretty straightforward place. Each region of it is controlled by one of the 3 key bearers, and so these regions each have something somewhat unique going on. Getting to Zeus is the most boring. Odin is surrounded by self-assembling cubes with cool designs, and Vasaki is at the top of a big crater. Of them, Vasaki is probably the most annoying to fight due to his proclivity for status ailments, but none of the 3 really compare to Shiva, whom Vasaki is guarding. Shiva is painful. Barring the DLC super boss, Shiva was easily the most difficult fight for me on the original Switch version of SMT5. Even after preparing and grinding a bit before the fight here, he's still a tough one. Shiva has only one weakness, ice. He heals off of electricity and fire and resists the ailments you'd expect, physical attacks, light, and dark. He brings in allies every so often, and depending on who joins him and if you can't take them out quickly enough, this fight will stretch on forever. Whenever a Nata pops up at his side, murder that snake immediately. It can and will heal Shiva back to full health if you let it, and that's not something you want to happen. The innate skill of his, Tripura Samara, makes charge effects cheaper to use for his side, like his Impaler's Animus, which in this fight isn't that important on account of him being a boss. Dragon Eye increases accuracy and he's plenty of attacks that hit everyone on your side of the fight. There are 2 attacks that should be worried about more than the others, Megadolone and Tandava. Both are almighty attacks, and unfortunately for you, neither demons you have nor the Nahobino himself has any kind of resistance to Almighty. The only things in this game that I can think of off the top of my head that have an Almighty resistance at all are the Super Boss Demi-Fiend and the various Mitama. But that unique skill of his, Tandava, is something special. When it hits, it also lowers the defense of everyone hit to the minimum. This fight is a long, dragged-out affair. It became a war of attrition for me, but he's beaten in the end after an hour of attempts and plotting out party members. The good news is that if I want to access the hidden ending of COC again, I don't have to fight Shiva again, or do those subquests I mentioned again if I don't want to. Every playthrough reads in the save file what has been done in previous playthroughs, which is handy. The Pillar Empyrean is next, and along the way is the second and final dungeon of COC. The gimmick here are doors, entryways that freeze everything, making it so you can't interact with anything, including the doors that would open automatically for you and the enemies that would normally take a swing at you if you got too close. These entryways are actually pretty easy to avoid. The patterns of enemies often leave just enough space for the daring that even when they seem to have a formation that would normally hurt you in a specific direction, it's just ineffective. Metatron is the final boss of the dungeon itself, and he's not hard after Shiva's trial by murder. Here is where the path split actually occurs, and if you haven't done those quests I mentioned before at this point, then you'll be locked out of the hidden ending.
Now, onward, my brother, for the throne and all the world is now the Amatsukame's.
Hold it! There's no need for all that. We'll just entrust everything to God. You're the smart guy here, right? It's been bugging me since the summit. Zeus and Odin were big-time gods, but both of them wanted it all. They were never gonna play nice. So what do you think is gonna happen in your world of gods? Endless war.
What are you?
You know these gods will eat each other alive! They won't ever see eye to eye. But here's the thing. If we just let the creator do his work, everyone will get their fair share. Don't you get it? How could someone who is all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing ever steer us wrong?
He speaks the truth. And protecting this divine order has ever been my sacred duty as Archangel. Yet I see that in my fettered angel form I cannot hope to prevail against you. That much I concede. But for the Almighty, and the world He gave us, I shall embrace darkness as a fallen angel!
Don't tell me you...
I will uphold God's will at all costs, even if it condemns me and severs me from His grace. Just like that serpent in the garden.
Ah, Abdiel. No matter how much you change on the outside, your faith as an archangel is unshakable!
You fools would bite into the forbidden fruit with God's name upon your lips. Even so, the new world is mine to create. And when my world of infinite gods is born, we will protect Japan far better than you ever could.
Not so fast. Sounds like you forgot about us.
Indeed. The Empyrean throne is rightfully ours. Though, of course, we have something a little different in mind for it.
With my own two hands, I will destroy that throne. And humanity will shape their own world.
I love Abdiel's transformation here. That's not even the most bonkers transformation that'll happen by the end of the game. There's order, as represented by Abdiel and Ichiro. Chaos, represented by Tsukiyomi and Yuzuru. Last, neutral, represented by Yakumo and Nua. The hidden ending requires choosing the side with a neutral path here. Yakumo was right though, it seems like even the narrative forgot about those two prior to this moment, given we just saw an explanatory cutscene for the other two paths. I do like that they just kept walking into the gateway, meanwhile everyone else was just expositing their aims all over the place. This is the final stretch of the game, with 3 bosses remaining and a couple of optional side quests and fights depending on the path you walk. I'm gonna gloss over those though. Reaching the end of this area leads to the throne itself and some interesting cutscenes further cementing the path you choose. You can actually see whether or not you have the hidden ending unlocked based on if Nua says something to you prior to your fight against the Naho-Bino fusion of Abdiel and Ichiro. After them and the Tsukiyomi Yuzuru Naho-Bino is the final boss of the game. More than the final boss, the true final boss. The version of him that has 3 phases unique to the hidden ending. Lucifer is another of my favorite bosses in this game, and he's been made stronger since the Switch release. His first phase sees him immune to fire, ice, electric force, and status ailments. He's also resistant to physical and drains light. You would think this alone makes him a formidable foe, but it doesn't end there. If you can't or don't deal damage to him during your turn, he gets an extra press turn icon when his turn comes around. He has the most powerful single target magic attacks for each element in Megadil alone, because yes, of course he would, plus some other shit like Tenturafu that aren't shown in his skill list when he's analyzed. Cold Dark Matter raises his defense to the max for 3 turns. He also has some unique skills, where every so often he will spawn a star. This will change his affinities while present, but there's a catch. If you don't destroy that star by his next turn, he's going to nuke someone with a piercing attack relative to whatever star he summoned. These stars have their own affinities as well and are effectively a damage test. Phase 2 changes his affinities and his skills. King's Ascendancy rewards his crits with an instant fuck off, sending the demon he crits back into your stock, assuming he didn't just kill him. Gaia Rage is an issue, a physical attack with high damage output on everyone who isn't Lucifer. Magma Access is a multi-hit fire attack with piercing, the only saving grace is that the amount of hits is variable between 3 and 8. Wild Dance is a chance to confuse everyone. Hot Dark Matter is like Cold Dark Matter, but for attack. Contempt for God just gives him 2 more press turn icons, just an extra 2 things he can do. And Crucifixion is all about screwing over one specific demon, lowering all their stats to the minimum for 3 turns. He doesn't do the summoning star things here, but don't expect it to last forever. Also, he still hurts when he punches you in the face. If nothing else, I'm glad we don't have to waste another turn on a Spyglass or Spy Scope in this instance to see these changes between phases. Phase 3 returns his affinities to how they were originally, gives him new skills, and brings back the stars. His various of God elemental skills all hit everyone on your side. Evil Gleam can give everyone you know and love the charmed ailment, and his Morning Star is one of the most dangerous things to contend with. So what happens when you finally kick Lucifer's ass?
And thus ended the world of man. With the new ruler came a new world order. It was an order akin to the world of old, and yet it was altogether different. Desires of a world free from demons, of a never-ending cycle of creation at last being broken, had led to this moment. But all things must eventually come to an end. Could the world truly exist apart from Mandala? Only the cosmos know what tomorrow will bring.
60-ish hours later, and that's the canon of creation. So let's get to the canon of vengeance, shall we? Last we left off there, Nama was just introduced, but there's not much difference afterwards. You still leave Dot by way of the Tokyo Diet Building after beating Nua. A key difference is the info that Yoko, just like Tao, is called a saint where she's from, and the school she goes to, St. Marina, is associated with Bethel already. While this raises some questions, we're not going to get any answers until later. For now, she gets transferred to Joan without a new uniform for some reason, and gives one hell of a bleak suggestion to Tao about Sahori's bullying. This change in the story perfectly exemplifies the difference between the two saints. Tao is a bit naive, but her altruistic intention shines through despite everything going on around her. Even with what's happening to Sahori and the demonic hellscape of the original Tokyo, she still hopes for the best. Yoko is more cynical, potentially even angry at both the ones abusing a system seemingly ignorant to its own flaws, as well as the existence of that system itself for allowing those flaws to manifest and flourish. She's more than willing to push the boundaries of the rules, and even believes that pushing is exactly what the system and those within it need. Yeah, it's clear who will represent what path even this early in the game, but their interactions aren't simply one disagreeing with the other's claims. It's a debate of a sort. This difference in viewpoint comes fairly quickly when Lamu successfully gets Sahori at the Still Not a Dungeon Joan.
I'm with you. I'm with you no matter what. And I'll prove it to you. Tao. You're not alone, Sahori. If you want revenge, then I'll help you get it. Don't do this, Tao. Put it down! I'm not going to drag you into this! Please don't do this. They're not worth it. Tell, I'm not worth it. No! No, I have to do this. I never faced my own problems. Always depended on someone else. No more. I won't abandon you. I won't make you carry this. So don't abandon me either. Don't leave me here. Sorry.
What are you doing, knowledge of mine? Surely such trivial words have not given you cause to hesitate.
I don't...
Embrace your hatred. Become one. Join with me.
No! I won't! I don't want to hate! And I refuse to hurt Tao anymore!
And after all that, Llama's still a small fry. We're not done yet, though.
Poor fool, Lamu. Such a shame. Had you but known the truth. You will not recreate this world. But your knowledge will serve. Its destruction is at hand. I, Lilith of the Kadishtu, shall return the world to its true form. The school did prove to be a fruitful target. Indeed, there was much Magatsuhi to harvest. And yet, disposing of the students so quickly was imprudent. Their suffering would have ultimately served us much greater in the end.
Sorry.
You cannot fall whilst the threat of thine enemies remains, O pitiable saint. The throne is in danger. Now, arise!
What? Sahori? What happened to Sahori?
That knowledge sustained too much damage. It rests now in a place beyond your reach.
No.
Despair not. For now your true purpose may be fulfilled. Your destiny has come to pass. With the powers you have been granted, you may revive all of the lives that were lost here. To that end, you must find one who can save this mournful world, who can raise it up. And once they are found, you must guide them. It is your duty and destiny to guide them to the throne.
find someone who can save this world and guide them.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I think I'm okay. Thank you, Yoko. I guess that means Right. I have to do this. I have to save everyone.
Listen to me! You are in over your goddamn head, Dazai!
Atsuta!
So what? This is where you prove you can fight? You think you can just fly in and be a hero? If only... If you could have fought, then maybe you wouldn't have gotten my sister kidnapped!
Calm yourself, Atsuta. Take a breath. He doesn't need you to tell him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it's my fault. That's why I have to do something to make it right.
Oh yeah? We don't even know if she's alive.
It's an interesting thing to see these characters interact like this, even if it falls under the "you failed so now I don't trust you to prove yourself" trope I've seen many a time before, which will undoubtedly result in Ichiro redeeming himself at some point by saving someone, likely the one he failed to save the first time, Miyazu in this case. COV also kind of expects the player to have played COC before. Some of the dialogue, like that voice talking to Tao and her death just now, don't really delve into the minutia of it. It happens again a bit later when a character offhandedly mentions that Tokyo's fading and another character just goes, "Oh yeah, that's a thing that's happening, I'll tell you about it later." But it doesn't interrupt story moments that are happening at the time. The pacing generally feels better for it, but then when they do explain things, it kills that pacing because in more than one instance, they just pull that explanation straight from the canon of creation. Regardless, we're in Shinagawa now, but Lamu isn't the primary target. Here, it's rescuing Miyazu and some other students that got dragged here. Funny thing about that though, these students we rescue all mention being hurt by a specific demon and ask them what they least desired about themselves. Then in a Wishmaster monkey's paw kind of situation, that same demon removed their least desired trait. And this culminates in the introduction to my favorite of the Kidishtu. Otherwise, Shinagawa is largely the same, except that we don't find Miyazu at the fairy village, and there's a small change with Dazai. Instead of failing to save Sahori from Lamu, in the story he failed to save Miyazu from someone else. He tried to let Yuzuru know, but between you, me, and everyone else who's played a video game before, Yuzuru isn't going to cut it. And we're right, since he strikes a deal with Aisha to keep her safe in exchange for killing us. He's not strong enough for that either.
Pathetic. So much for all your brotherly determination. But fear not, for this girl will now be saved.
No! Atsuta!
Dazai. Holy crap. I did it. Awesome.
Miyazu! Where's Yuzuru? Yuzuru! She's okay! She's safe.
How dare you? How dare you interrupt at the moment of salvation?
That's quite enough, Ashith. You and Nama disgrace us all. So deeply shameful.
Quiet, you whelp! The salvation of these cursed souls is my duty. The Nahobino's power is unexpected, but no matter. With our power combined, we can end him!
The Crow of Crows has taken roost nearby. We've been ordered back. You shall obey.
So be it.
They turned to salt. All of them.
Not just the students, but all the fairies, too.
What could have happened here?
A new face, the Crow of Crows, and everyone becoming salt. I'm glad that the story of COV is able to retrace similar steps to COC without growing stale, instead throwing in new conundrums and issues to deal with that extend beyond here's a new demon to kill, which isn't to say that there aren't new demons to kill. The first immediate issue to resolve is that people becoming salt is generally frowned upon in modern society, and Tokyo is now being assailed by Morton Salt spokesmen as well, so we should probably investigate that. First thing that comes to my mind is Lot's wife becoming a pillar of salt in Genesis, but that doesn't necessarily mean that angels were behind this. Talking with people in Tokyo suggests three things are related: seeing a fortune teller, spotting a giant crow afterward, and being sick until eventually becoming salt. Finding that fortune teller is a no-go, but that giant crow is much easier followed. It seems to be traveling between Dot and Tokyo at will, and so we head to Jizoji Temple, which directly links to where it travels to in Dot, Shinjuku. Shinjuku is a new location introduced in COV and replaces Chiyoda for the third location of the game. It's stylistically different from Chiyoda, especially given how much can actually be seen. This starting location is very wide open, but later on the trekking becomes more claustrophobic and winding, nearly a maze with how many turns you have to make in the destroyed city streets. Along the way we spot and talk to Yakumo and Nua, wherein Yakumo makes the point that the Kirishtu might be conniving, but turning people to salt isn't necessarily their MO. He's right, of course. So far, every member of the Kirishtu have been killing people left and right, gathering up the resulting Magatsuhi. If someone is salt, can they even extract it? We later find out that the answer is no, or at least it's claimed to be no, and are reminded that correlation does not equal causation when we ask an archangel. Mastema, haven't seen you since I last played Strange Journey. He's the Crow of Crows that was mentioned prior, and it wasn't the fortune teller that was turning people to salt, it was him, because those people talked to the fortune teller, a member of the Kirishtu in disguise. He's also the primary reason why Ichiro goes full law in COV, which will have drastic consequences later. It's soon after this we finally face the Kirishtu gathered together, after stopping a trap set by Yakumo and Nua that unfortunately would cost the lives of innocent people. Egret, Nama, Ashith, and Lilith. These four make up the Kirishtu, and by their powers combined, they would probably pose a problem if this were my first playthrough. All four of them have innate skills that buff other Kirishtu while in the party, but each of them occupies a different role. Lilith is all about buffing, the skills Marukaja and Marakukaja improving attack and defense respectively for everyone on her side. She's not a big fan of light attacks. Nama we talked about earlier, though her skills have changed since and now she's all debuffs all the time. Aishith is physically focused with a weakness to force. Lastly, though you won't really see it here because she dies far too quickly, Agret is a magic user with an interesting unique skill called Queen's Decree that hits 12 times, albeit with minimal damage, probably crit farming. Then comes the aftermath, and 20-ish minutes of cutscenes and I can't quite justify showing every second of. This video is going to be long enough already. The game doesn't outright explain how it is that the Kirishtu managed to kill the Nahobino to complete the ritual, but one can assume it has something to do with Magatsuhi on account of their efforts thus far, amounting to gathering that at all costs. After the Nahobino falls, Aogami sacrifices himself to save the protagonist, leaving Tiamat to wreak havoc on Shinjuku, and Ichiro and Abdiel to pick up the pieces, or so one would hope, given the way Ichiro was acting prior to his arrival here. Of course, he since then turned into a pillar of salt, and got powered up by Mastema, who isn't exactly known for his nice nature. While we were cheering chasing after the Kadishtu, the assault on the Demon King's castle in Shinagawa was still ongoing even without our involvement, and after Ariok's fall, it seems Abdiel turned her gaze onto those who wished to become Nahobino. This resulted in the duo of Abdiel and Ichiro ambushing Koshimizu and Yuzuru, ultimately resulting in Yuzuru's death at Abdiel's hands. But that's not where the story ends, of course. Koshimizu still needs to reveal he's actually Tsukiyomi, and we're out of a proto-fiend, so we should do something about that.
Thank you. In order to lead well in times of crisis, Tsukiyomi maintained a human appearance while managing domestic affairs here in Japan. It was necessary to serve the nation. The Tsukiyomi type is at present managing the country. In fact, serving as Prime Minister. Yes, I am that Tsukiyomi type. Young man, let us fight together. Now then, young man, forward.
This was the question I posed earlier, and had even when I played this game's original iteration on the Switch the first time, and I'm glad to see my curiosity sated. I like the new look, even if its design made it obvious what might happen when the trailers revealed this new form. Now that we've gotten it, we should take it for a test run and check out Shakan, the equivalent to the Demon King's castle from Shinagawa in COC. Just like there, this dungeon also has a pretty simple gimmick, pedestals that flip the orientation. 1 second you're on the floor, next you're on the ceiling. Doesn't get too complicated, just be aware of positioning and you're fine. Mastama, who sent us this way, mentioned that the one controlling Tiamat, pretty sure that's Yoko now, is somewhere inside, and Abdiel has likewise entered in an effort to stop her. Yoko, just like Tao, is a goddess with the ability to help a Nahobino reshape the world as they see fit, but the creator saw this as a threat to his rule. There can only be one ruler, after all, so the full breadth of her powers were sealed away by the creator here in Shakan, and a deal with the Kadishtu was made in order for her to become whole once more. Abdiel has a chance to stop this and the potential resulting destruction, an opportunity to actually do some good. Instead, on top of her failing to recognize us even though we're the only person she's ever met who looks like this, turns out if she can't get the drop on someone, she's just as dangerous as a church mouse and capable of even less. This leaves us playing catch-up in Taito afterwards, where once more we see Tao didn't die in the conventional sense, and there's some keys to gather to reach the Empyrean. Some changes here though. Vasaki gets bodied by Beelzebub, and instead of facing them separately, you've got both Zeus and Odin to contend with simultaneously. Going through the Pillar Empyrean is largely the same after collecting the 3 keys, though after Metatron is a key difference.
Hey, look who showed up! That you, dude? I went to all that trouble not to kill you. Guess that's what I get for trying to be nice.
Dazai, what are you talking about?
Eh? Hold on. Isano Kami? That's wild. You're a goddess now, huh? I mean, I guess that's the natural path after all the saint stuff. I thought I was pretty clear. You defy God's will and become a Nahobino, and I have to kill you. So congrats! I I guess you're on the list.
That thing... Abdiel...
Yeah, Abdiel found out the truth. She wasn't strong enough to beat you on her own. Justice means nothing without power! And now that I'm the one with the power, time to dole some out!
Abdiel and Ichiro aren't really that difficult, just get revenge for Yuzuru and continue on. And then of course is the battle for the throne itself, which sees us siding with Tao and creating an ideal world. But this of course is something that Yoko doesn't really agree with.
You can't. I won't let you. Any future you build for this world will be as broken as the past. You preserve a god's rule, the law of one. The Kadishtu were right. I am their plan. The world's fate is to return to chaos. Grant death to the slaves of the system!
Tiamat has 4 targets. There's the main body of Tiamat, and then the 3 heads, each with their own affinities and capabilities. The main body resists almost everything. Her skills are all bitter cold, save for a healing skill, which heals every punchable part of Tiamat. The dragon head is weak to light and dark, and banks on a couple of physical skills. The goat head doesn't like being punched in its goat face, and has skills tied to fire, force, and wind. The camel head isn't keen on every element but ice, and utilizes dark and light skills to deal damage. Each of the 3 heads rocks Impaler's Animus to ignore affinity resistances, and Lester Candy to buff every stat by 1 rank for everyone on her side, and every one of them likewise drains ice and resists status ailments. The key to this fight is that defeating one of the heads, for both gameplay and lore reasons, doesn't actually kill the head. Instead, the heads share the innate skill Musmahu, which means that a head that reaches 0 life will siphon it from the body to heal back to full health. Moves that ignore affinity and hit everyone, like the always useful Gaia Rage, are fantastic here, but the fight can't end even when we beat her.
Young man, if you wish to live, take my hand. My being became Magatsuhi. I was absorbed by Tiamat. When she fell by your hand and reformed, my essence escaped hers. I have reclaimed myself. But when we were bound together, I learned something. As a primordial goddess, she is nearly immortal. Yet her divinity is rooted within her identity as a dragon. If you seek to best a godly dragon, you'll need a godly dragon slayer. And so, my power is yours. Now let us rise, young man. This time we end it.
Was that at all absolutely necessary? No. Was it good? Yes. I liked that the process Yoko mentioned when the Kadisho first bragged about their resurrection plans. The idea of cause and effect linking together forever was brought back into play here, especially given the cyclical nature of this world that everyone at the end of the game talks about. The Dragon Slayer killed the dragon was brought back when the Dragon Slayer died, the Dragon Slayer was brought back when the dragon died, the Dragon Slayer killed the dragon. But we're still not quite done yet.
I offer up my body as a goddess of creation. I summon deepest void, the living abyss! Come, Chaos, envelop this world! To home! Rise up!
So Home is cool. She's shattered into reality in the same way that Lamu had done before, but Lamu did that from Dot to Tokyo, which suggests that Home is from somewhere even beyond that. In terms of her class of demon, it's Void, and she's the only one you will ever encounter. She's weak to everything but status ailments and physical, but her innate skill, World Ingurgitation, reverses that on the following turn a weakness is hit. In addition, she retaliates and makes attacks of her own using the element of whatever was exploited. She has the strongest and non-unique single target skills for every kind of attack, as well as skills like Dakunda that aren't shown when analyzed. Abyssal Beckoning is different in that it's an almighty drain attack, but it can also inflict sleep. Her affinities will reset when she uses her Magatsuhi skill Inception of Chaos, which is an extremely powerful almighty attack on everyone. On occasion, she'll just watch, not clear on why. She seems committed to prioritizing the use of Dekaja and Dakunda after a certain point in the fight, meaning you can abuse her AI pretty easily by using skills like Debilitate and Luster Candy. An interesting quirk to this fight is you never actually kill her, she just runs away. After all that, the final boss is the same. I mean, you can choose to fight the standard or tougher version of Lucifer if you cleared the hidden ending of COC in a prior playthrough on the same save file, but you do still have to fight. And what's your hard-fought reward?
The boundless potential of the world's beginning will bring peace, where once there was instability. The Empyrean and the throne of creation shall become a cradle and shall encircle all of its wonder. Every world that has been, every world that will be, shall be nurtured within this infinite universe. And there, a paradise shall be born. A world where all wishes are fulfilled and none denied.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is a cool title, and I appreciate that it retained the original story. Still, in keeping in line with their proclivity to re-release games in an updated and upgraded way, it's hard not to feel annoyed that I bought it twice. I mean, yeah, technically, my choice. No one forced me to do that, but that doesn't make the fact that it happened any less aggravating. The canon of creation half of the game still holds the same problems it did years ago. Character interactions were noticeably sparse at times when you traveled with characters that weren't demons. The world building was nice, but the lack of an overarching goal didn't help with investing in that world. Each area was unique but repetitive, and the interesting things about them grew tired pretty quickly due to that repetitiveness. Characters are mostly one note, and motivations likewise are pretty simple. The expectation of the path split wasn't a help. In fact, it made it easier to know which character was meant to represent what path. There were times when it felt like it wanted me to follow along the chaos path, with characters speaking as if it had already been decided, and story beats focusing on those characters more than the rest. Hell, the characters representing the neutral path didn't get the same motivation showcase as the others did at the end, despite having two endings that they are integral for. The music is great, and the gameplay and implementation of the iconic press turn system was fun. Figuring out which demons worked best for any given situation or worked best with other demons was a great time, and the addition of essences allowed further customization of the favorites I carried with me from beginning to end. The fact that beating certain routes granted unlocks for future playthroughs was nice, and the new challenges in the form of a new super boss and reworked enemies is a good change. The Canon of Vengeance side was just better. There are some parts where they don't over-explain things and kind of assume you've already cleared COC, but other times where it feels like they were obliged to explain something, which just slows things down. The story's better, and the interactions between characters no longer make it as obvious who will follow what path, although it is still pretty obvious. A new third region replacing Shinagawa was refreshing, and its views were good enough that I found myself annoyed the game has a lackluster photo mode that's firstly locked within the demon haunts and secondly is bad. The storyline doesn't feel nearly as meandering, and there's solid motivations for nearly everyone involved to do what they do. The implementation of elements of some side quests from COC into the main story of COB was cool, and the gameplay and music were, as before, good. But do I recommend it? Is it worth it? It's hard to recommend a turn-based RPG in general, much less one with the reputation of Shin Megami Tensei tied to it, but I would say yes, with the caveats that it can be difficult and that you shouldn't go in expecting a story and characters akin to the sister series Persona. If you played it before, then go for Canon of Vengeance first. If you haven't, you can choose either and probably be fine. I won't keep you any longer than I already have. Next up is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I'll see you later. Story out.